I was mentioning warlords in this country earlier. The fact is that most of them have got MPs after their name. But as we know, there has always been a heroic minority of people who voted against this war when it started in 2001 and have been fighting it all the way ever since. And we're very proud to have them on our platform here again today. Please give a warm welcome to Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Andrew, for that kind introduction. I work amongst war criminals and warlords. I'm doing my best to survive in all the circumstances, but I have to confess to you it isn't always easy. First of all, a big thank you to everyone for coming here today. I've just been disagreeing with Andrew about the numbers here. There are 206 people here already, and the numbers are rising fast. And it's great to see such a good turnout here today. And I think we often take for granted the presence of the anti-war movement and the peace movement and the progressive movements in this country because we make our case, we march, we meet, we demonstrate, and we're not always successful. More than 1 million marched and more than 1 million more assembled on February 15th, 2003. We didn't succeed in stopping the war in Iraq, but by our very presence, we changed the terms of debate. By our very presence, we emboldened a lot of MPs to vote against, who I suspect would not have voted against the war had there not been that demonstration. And I also think that we've probably stopped a bombing and invasion of Iran, which could well have happened in 2004, 5 or 6, had there not been the presence of this massive anti-war movement. We have changed the terms of debate. Not always reflected in the media, I readily concede that. And so my plea is to understand the importance of the public debate, the public demonstrations, the public questioning, the eternal questioning of the whole military strategy that's being pursued by this country, the United States, and now the whole of Western Europe in respect of Libya. The Stop the War Coalition was founded amidst anger and hope. We've been around for 10 years, and we're going to be around as long as it takes to change the military, imperial, colonial strategy of this country, the USA and Western Europe, which is so dangerous to the future of this planet and so dangerous to the lives of thousands of people all around the world. We're going to see a lot of each other for a long time to come. And what isn't always appreciated is the effects on our own society. And there are two. One is that we are a small country of 65 million people or thereabouts on the northwest shores of Western Europe. We have very limited natural resources of our own. We have very limited manufacturing industrial capacity because it's been successively reduced. What we have is a crippling and vast expenditure on attempting to obtain global reach in military matters. We're now proposing to spend a further £70 billion on the lunacy, and it is the only way to describe it, of developing a new generation of nuclear weapons. And there is a constant lobby that goes on in Parliament that says it's very important for Britain to maintain a global reach in all military matters. It's simply impossible for a country of this size to maintain that, so we have the grand illusion that we can do it. So we shelter under the wings of the United States, which is the most indebted nation in the world's history ever, yet still feels that its future lies in developing ever greater weapons of mass destruction and an ever greater global reach. The better to grab natural resources, the better to obtain those natural resources at the expense of others. And so there's something really strangely 19th century about what's going on at the present time. It's almost like a war of empires for resources. That is incredibly dangerous. And in order to maintain support for this, we're fed the line that the world is in danger because country X is doing something bad, because country Y is doing something bad, and our security depends on our intervention in Afghanistan, in Libya, or wherever else it happens to be. What I see as a much greater threat to our security is the growing militarization and intolerance of our society, the growing sense of Islamophobia, the growth of anti-terror legislation, which Shadia quite correctly pointed out, and we had a debate about anti-terror legislation in Parliament the other day. Now, I've been involved in opposing anti-terror legislation ever since I first went into Parliament in 1983. That we now had the Prevention of Terrorism Act. It was utterly mild compared to all the stuff we've got now. I mean, I was very against it, I have to say, but compared to what we have now, I'd readily swap what we've got now for the Prevention of Terrorism Act. And these idea of the T-pins, you're going to get to hear a lot about T-pins, so you better remember that. TPIMs, they're the new version. They're sort of control orders light, low sugar control orders, that kind of thing. You know, they're more targeted. But the principle is exactly the same, that the power is vested in the Home Secretary of executive control over the liberty of an individual, to place them under house arrest, to place them under control, or if they're foreign nationals, to detain them indefinitely under immigration law. And because of the disgusting agreements made by Tony Blair, the exchange of letters of intent by countries that have not signed the UN Convention on Torture, that individuals can be deported to those states on the basis that the government of those states say, don't worry, we probably won't torture them, it's okay. And so these control orders are very, very dangerous, not just because they are control orders, but because what accompanies them is executive power to administer, to override the legal system, and where there is a legal system, such as the Special Immigration Appeals Courts, they are something worthy of Franz Kafka, in that the individual who's brought before the court doesn't know the evidence against them. The barrister who's representing the individual is allowed to know the general case against them, but isn't allowed to reveal it to his or her client. And the judge is the only one that fully understands the whole case, and of course the prosecution. That is not a fair and open trial, because they're also held in secret, just to add good measure on that. And that is happening now in Britain today, and the equivalent is happening in most European countries, and under the Department of Homeland Security also happens in the United States. These are very, very serious attacks on our liberty, and it's very important that we oppose those things. But I have to say, in Parliament on Tuesday night, when this was debated, there were 4 MPs who opposed it, myself, and one Conservative and 2 Liberal Democrats. And so the issue is now going into committee and will come back for debate later on. And whilst it isn't central to Stop the War Coalition's efforts, it is important that you work with all those organisations that are standing up for civil liberties in this country. So please bear in mind what I just said about that.